guest today is Rajiv Rajgopal, Managing Director at Akzo Nobel. It's a company which manufactures Dulux paint and one of the largest brands in the painting industry. Rajiv, thank you very much for joining us in on BQ Prime. My first question to you is that a good set of profitability coming in quarter, 43%, crossing the 100 crore mark. Uh, what do you attribute that to?
So good morning, Sajid. Good morning to you and to all the BQ Prime viewers. Thank you for having me in your show. Last quarter, yes, the profitability improved largely because of sequential softening of raw materials, which we are seeing. We've started getting the benefit of the crude easing, which happened. Of course, in the last few weeks, crude has started slowly climbing back, which we'll see there is a lag of about 2 months, so we'll have to wait and watch. But other than that, largely two reasons. One, the mix was also slightly better, which was reflected in a margin improvement. And secondly, was a softening of raw materials. And we also continue to work on our cost base. So, we've embarked on a strategy both globally and in India where we are working on four vectors. One is margin management. Second is really working on our cost base to make sure that we are an efficient organization given the wars ahead. We're working on improving our working capital and making sure that we are hence able to increase our cash flows. In fact, you can see that in our results also, not just in the quarter, but also of the last fiscal.
Uh, Give me a sense of the mix which you spoke about. How is it turning out, and where is it? Where are the margins coming in from?
So our premium continues to grow pretty high double digit. Premium and adjacent categories seem to grow very well. We have seen, when you ask me where is the growth, uh, till the last quarter it was fairly secular, but this quarter we've seen a higher growth coming from the semi-urban and rural towns where our presence has been sort of not so very strong. We had dialed in our distribution 2.0 strategy, which really focused on saying how can we now move to the next town. So we used to be in about 3,000, 4,000 towns, a couple of years ago. We've now dialed in up to about 5,000 towns availability, and now we are targeting saying that how do we reach 8,000 towns in the next couple of years. So really premium, our drive on adjacencies and distribution seems to be really working on the paint side. In our coating side, our premium business in the automotive specialty coatings business, our marine and protective coating business, which has seen a rebounds both in marine and in protective, and some very strong performances coming in our powder business has really helped to shore up our margins and also our growth.
Okay. You've been speaking about growth coming in from tier three, tier four cities. Can you give me a mix of what kind of revenues that you get from these cities, tier one, two, three, four, or rural or urban, to get an idea of where it is coming in? And is what category of paints are getting pushed out to these segments? Is it economy class or premium ones which are getting pushed?
Yeah. So, Sajid, we don't sort of give disclosures in terms of segment-wise revenue, etc., or at tier level. But suffice to say that if you look at brand Dulux, a large percentage of the sales used to come from our premium, metros and tier one, tier two towns, and hence that shift is something that we've started seeing in it, where we've started seeing a higher growth now coming in from the tier three, tier four towns. Obviously, it's a much smaller constituent because obviously it's a journey that we embarked on a couple of years ago, and that's where the contribution at this point of time wouldn't make sense. It's the relative growth that you need to do in terms of how you're outpacing the overall growth. Secondly, if you really look at it from a category, what is really growing in these towns? Yeah, in our mind, it used to be mass, and that's what we did. But what we are seeing is also the premium consumption in some of these towns seem to have, in the last quarter, really picked up. So it seems to be a bit of a K-shaped recovery where we are seeing our premium and some of our premium adjacencies in these markets also really dialing up.
Mm. Uh, do you see volumes or the delta more coming from the tier three and tier four compared to the urban?
So I think this was a quarter sort of a performance. When I look at structurally, obviously our metros and tier one, tier two have a higher composition, right? So really, I do expect that by the time we enter into Diwali, the season, as you call it in the paint industry, I do expect those segments, those geographies to really bounce back very strongly.
Give me a
Yeah.
yeah. You were saying something.
No, I think this is also to do with, I think if you really look at, a little, the inflationary pressures are also being felt a bit. And really, one of the things you're also seeing is slightly elevated raise levels of, home loan rates, right? So typically, if you really look at it, and when I'm saying elevated, not, it could be still better than maybe years ago, but really elevated to the last, if you look at it for a year on year, obviously it's at an elevated level. So really, the what we are seeing is also there is a large base. If you look at 21 and 22, a lot of people post COVID wanted to paint homes, etc., and we've seen that in some of our, home inquiries that we've just started doing. That look, there has obviously been a elevated level of consumption at a point in time. Again, these are very temporary. I do think that by the time the money comes, the normal consumption and seasonality will start putting in play.
Give me a sense of the volume growth and the pricing growth. Means have you been able to pass on some of the benefits of the raw material prices to the customers, especially in the retail segment? And what kind of volume growth are you seeing here?
So we've seen a volume growth of close to a high single digit, and so it's a shade above our revenue growth, and the reason for that is obviously, in our mass segments, etc. There has been a higher discounting in the market by some of the key lead players, and obviously we needed to make sure that we also play in those segments. There is still a price increase because of the price increases we had taken last year, and that will pan almost till September, October this year, because we had taken price increases in July, August, and September last year, albeit at a much smaller level, but we had taken price increases last year, right? So I think, look, going forward, which is where you're sort of driving into, Sajid, I do think that, over a period of time, over the next few years, that volume, will play a critical role in driving revenue growth. So it's about getting new users in, it's about driving consumption, and then trying to trade up consumers within the segment.
Your distribution strategy has been quite aggressive in the last 2 years, especially expansion. From expansion of centers point of view, and you're looking at 8 to 9,000 centers or cities basically in the next 2 years. What is the kind of expense, advertising and promotional expenses which you will be doing to get to that level? Because it's getting very competitive, and two new players are coming into the market as well.
Yeah, so let me break it into some parts. So first, when we dial up our distribution, I would say the way we look at it is India has almost now about 660, 680 districts, almost getting close to 700 now. Yeah, and there are about 250, 300 districts where our presence is very low. So really, how do we establish brand Dulux in those markets? And you're right, in some of these districts, actually, it's also media dark. So how do you really create a brand, an activation of the brand in the market, and obviously working through our retailers and painter contractor, both through a digital program that we've embarked on, and also creating a high level of visibility in the local market is going to be a driver. Now, as far as advertising is concerned, which is the second part of the question you asked, look, we had dropped during COVID to about 1.8% of the revenue, 2%, which is obviously very low. I think our endeavor is to bring it to about 3.5% to 4%, and it also depends on the creative and what story we want to communicate. At this point of time, we've got two commercials which we played on air. One is the Premium Interior Velvet Touch, which is a flagship brand, Dulux Velvet Touch, and Dulux Feather Shield Power Flex. These are the two flagship brands where we put communication over the last year, and we will dial it back into during the season. And also, how do we really create a winning in store sort of a concept? So that's really what we are working on, and that's where we are going to spend money, and our endeavor is to say that, look, I think we've reached double-digit profitability, and as a challenger brand, in the marketplace, I think we are pretty happy with that. I think for us now, it's really about dialing in higher revenues, which will then be accretive to the margins. That's the way we are sort of playing the whole.
And what is the margin level that you're looking at? I mean, you've been focusing on margin stability as well. So what?
Sajid, so look, I think we've looked at a lot of scenario planning in the way we work, right? Given the new competition, etc., and we're working on various simulations. At this point of time, I continue to hold that we should be at good double-digit EBIT margins. That's been our journey. Remember, we have come a long way over the last decade, where we were at a low single digit at a point in time, or mid single digit to a double digit. And my endeavor over the last 5 years has really been to really say that, except that one quarter of COVID where everybody had to literally got impacted. Other than that, really getting it back to a double digit. We are happy to be there right now. I think for us, it's about saying how do we build secular growth in the portfolio, both in our paints and coating side. And really, I think the teams are really working hard on that and really making sure that our brand is far more present, and we are able to drive. Because look, for us, Sajid, our biggest story is the fact that our product Dulux is considered to be the best in class. People who use that product really want to switch. So I think the key is then how do we get more people to try it and say that look, it's a fantastic product. So that's really where we are working on, and we are working on a program called Dulux Assurance, which you'll see in a few weeks, 2.0, where we're really trying to dial that up back, because we genuinely think, because this is not something which is a manufacturer speak. This is what consumers have told us in research, that you've got the best product in the market. So really, how do we dial that up in a much higher manner? How do we bring it back? And how do we then start getting our fair share in the segments in which we participate?
As you scale up in your distribution, what is the kind of capacity augmentation that you're looking at?
Yeah. So look, I think today we've got approximately about a 240, 250 million sort of capacity. We are running at about 60% utilization, and we've got capacity. I mean, our Gwalior factory was built for about 100 million liters. We are at about, at 50% of that. So our ability to scale that up is very good. In powder business, for example, we're just adding capacity in our Gwalior business, in a Gwalior plant. And so we will, from a capacity perspective, I don't see an issue, because we've been very efficient in the way we drive business. I think compliments to the manufacturing and supply chain teams. What we've done is we've tried to use technology like IoT, etc., to try and make sure that we are able to be far more efficient. So our ability to scale up using our existing infrastructure is not very difficult. Of course, we are open to, depending on how the volume grows, to also be able to set up a higher capacity. So that's not a constraint for us, Sachin.
Give me a sense of, you said raw material prices are again inching up. Do you see an increase in pricing further ahead of the festive season? Because that's going to be the key for the festive season for you.
So at this point of time, festive season is just about 4 to 6 weeks away. So I don't really see a increase, unless, look, it's very difficult to say, because we live in a world which is very volatile. Between now and if I were to make a commitment, and then news that may sort of suddenly come within an hour or two, life changes, and that's what we've all realized. With external events that have disrupted supply chains and disrupted the price of oil, etc. So other things being equal, I would put it that I do see at a point in time, maybe a little post Diwali, but again we'll have to wait and watch. So there are two determinants, Sajid, of the pricing of a paint or a coating. It's basically, one is currency, and the other is also the price of truth. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and watch both. We've got to manage this very carefully. It is a tightrope. So because we work very hard to build a double-digit profitability. So as a team, we're also very clear that we want to build on it, because that's our leverage to make sure that we are able to be competitive, right? And also keep Arsenal ready for the real big fights that may come later.
Finally, you also sell through the online and e-commerce channel. What percentage of sales is coming from that channel for you now?
So that's very minor
Okay.
at this point of time. But yeah, I mean, look, from zero, obviously, even a 3-4% looks very attractive. 2-3% looks very attractive. But the fact is, it'll take time. Adoption is there. What we wanted to do was to create a portfolio where consumers and younger consumers, because we see a lot of people wanting to paint one wall, because still you may want the home to be done by a painter or a contractor or whatever. But you want to also express your feelings on a wall, and that's what we've done. So we've created this portfolio called DIY, Do It Yourself, and we've created a new advertising campaign called Joy is DIY, and where we've got commercials which show how people like you and me can just sort of open a can of paint, and quickly sort of express our creativity on the wall. That's what we are trying to do through that, and we are hoping, look, if you look at India, digital has become a big driver of adoption of and technology, right? So my view is we may be a few years ahead of of that uptick, but I do believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, that proportion will start going up. It's a matter of time. And whether it's 3, 5, 7, I think is a matter of debate. But really, from our perspective, it was about getting the right portfolio, getting our understanding of the channels, making sure our supply chain teams are working with the vendors, working with Amazon. We are now available on Amazon, etc. Right, and Flipkart. So really understanding that ecosystem, working with them, and being ready was our endeavor.
Rajiv, it was a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you very much for joining us on BQ Prime.
Thank you, Sajid. Thank you, and wish you